Well, for more on the damage caused by hurricanes, let's bring in Paul Bledsoe. He is a professorial lecturer at the American University Center for Environmental Policy and a former climate advisor in the Clinton White House. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, with Hurricane Milton barreling towards Florida, what can we expect in terms of impact on the ground?
Thank you, Poppy. Unfortunately, what's happening is the superheated oceans by climate change are fueling much wetter, much bigger storms. And so you saw Helene dumping record amounts of rain on the East Coast. By the way, new estimates are the total costs of Hurricane Helene will be $250 billion, $250 billion, killed over 200 people. Now you have another massive storm because of these hotter oceans due to global warming that's going to hit Florida, and we just don't know how bad it could get. But the winds are very high, and the other thing is these warmer oceans make the storms much wetter, and it's the flooding that inflicts the biggest destruction, particularly economic damage.
Now, as you've mentioned, those costs from Helene run into the billions of dollars. Milton is oncoming. I mean, what does Florida do? Is the state, is that region ready economically to manage the huge impact of these superstorms?
Here's the truth. When the storms get this big, no one is ready. Climate change is inflicting huge storms, droughts, wildfires, and heat waves all around the world, and we cannot fight Mother Nature if we allow it to spin out of control because of superheated temperatures from greenhouse gases. We have got to finally begin to cut greenhouse gases. In particular, if we want to reduce near-term temperatures, then we have to cut methane emissions. The U.S., under President Biden and Vice President Harris, is cutting methane. China has promised a plan but not delivered it for 3 years. We have got to get serious about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, or these storms are going to happen all over the world and inflict unbelievable damage. That's the only way to stop it, is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Now, of course, as we've seen with Hurricane Helene, historic loss of life and property. This is a huge issue, of course, as you mentioned, as these trends continue. Let's talk about the state of the home insurance industry in this context. What was the situation in Florida before Helene hit, and what do you think is the likely future impact?
It's a good question. Already, Floridians, most of them cannot afford homeowners insurance because the prices have gone up so high due to these consistently large storms. Most Florida residents who are trying to get homeowners insurance either can't afford it or it's simply not available. This is going to begin to happen at places throughout the Southeast. And this is part of the huge costs of climate change. You know, one thing we don't think about on climate change is lost productivity. There was a study in the Harvard Business Review just last year that found that annual loss from heat waves is 500 billion work hours globally due to just extreme heat. Climate change is inflicting massive economic costs on countries around the world, including the United States and China, which is why we need to bring ourselves together to solve this problem.
Now, you talk about economic cost. We've just had a little conversation there about the home insurance industry. What other industries are impacted by these latest storms? Now, for example, in North Carolina, which was the state hardest hit by Helene, it produces important materials for computer chip manufacturing, and these towns are now devastated. So could you talk to the knock-on effect in terms of supply chain and other industries as the aftermath continues?
The truth is that it cuts across all sectors. When you have flooding wiping out entire towns like Asheville, North Carolina, when you have tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars in new costs, all the industries face huge losses. And consumers are hard hit too, because commodities, necessary commodities like food and energy, those prices go up because supply chains are interrupted. So the costs of extreme weather to the U.S. economy, to China's economy, from its record flooding just a year or two ago, are going to continue to get larger. We cannot hold Mother Nature back once we've unleashed her in this superhooted way. We have got to reduce temperatures by reducing emissions. It's the only way to keep long-term costs down.